Mr. Gareth A. Davies, back in London, finally, back home.
No, it's a fake. It's a fake screen.
Is it a fake? Is it a green screen? Is it a green screen behind you?
It's a green screen with a blue light and some paintings behind me. No, I am home. Yeah, and it's nice to be home. And I'm actually working in London this weekend with these two massive fights going on. I'm actually working the post-fight interviews and a bit of talent work at Bare Knuckle Boxing 51 at Indigo at the O2 that sold out. So 14 rip-roaring bare knuckle fights. But I will have half an eye on both Nottingham, where I think you may be, and also Las Vegas, of course, later on in the night.
I'm going to be in Vegas. I fly out tomorrow.
Of course you are. I forgot.
I'm going to be in Vegas. Yeah. How can you forget that? I'm going to get some sun on my back after you've been enjoying a bit of sunshine the last few months. But yeah, I go out to Vegas tomorrow morning to cover that fight, which is really good. Always good to do some of the big American fights. All right, let's get straight to it. Quite a lot to get into on this one. Tyson Fury is back. We saw him in a public setting for the first time, which feels like a long time, at the press conference at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You were there for talkSPORT. You were there as well, I'm guessing, doing some stuff for the Telegraph. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Before we do hear from Tyson Fury, overall, just seeing him again for the first time in months, how did he look?
He's good. He's the Gypsy King. He's the entertainer. He's getting older all the time. There's lots of hubris from him, as always. And I just wonder whether Arslanbek Makhmudov will prove to be his nemesis. That's the danger for him. He's a big figure, Tyson Fury. He was full of it again and fully back. The takeaways were really the top lines, Ade, out of it were, look, I'm the entertainer of the division. It's been really quiet without me, which is true. It was a very quiet year in the heavyweight division last year, notwithstanding we had some good fights. But that bluff and bluster and all that stuff came back. And obviously he made a very good point that he'd realised that nothing's to waste in life, and he'd referred and deferred to Anthony Joshua and the tragic events in his life and the fact that it had made him think, if I love boxing, I should be making the most of all my opportunities, which is one way of putting it. He's back for big bucks. There's no doubt about that. He's back for Netflix. If you think about the beginning when the heavyweight division first came on the move, it was Turki Al Sheikh and the Saudi Arabians, and they saw Tyson Fury as the linchpin in that. And he's still a big figure in the heavyweight division. He's outrageous. He takes the microphone. He makes a lot of noise. We shall see with him coming up 38 what he's got left, in athletic and warrior fighting terms on April the 11th. But he's definitely back, and it's good to have him back in the division, in my view.
No, it's certainly good to have him back. He is the entertainer, but not just in the ring, outside the ring as well. And look, you alluded to it there at the start. It has been a bit quiet without Tyson Fury. I think maybe Fabio Wardley's done well in the last 15 months since Fury's been gone, but it has felt a bit stale without Tyson. We've had some big fights. Let's not pretend we haven't. We've gone to Germany. We've gone to Wembley. But Tyson Fury just brings an extra bit of showmanship that boxing, maybe in all the divisions, really is missed.
Yeah, well, we only had Alexander Usyk once last year. We only had Anthony Joshua in that one fight against Jake Paul late in the year. So it was a really quiet year in many ways for the heavyweight division in terms of making big news. Yes, Fabio emerged as a star last year, and he was spectacular in what he did. We didn't have that. When there's a lot of noise out there, when there's a feeding frenzy around clickbait and all those things that drives the industry. Boxing's about hype and promotion. It was a quiet year, even though we had good fights. And it was an interesting year in terms of the development in the United States. And we had some good events here. That Fury's on a different level. We will miss him when he's gone. We'll miss Anthony Joshua and Usyk when they're gone. They're different. But the fact that it feels like the heavyweight division's lit again, Ade. That's what I feel about it. And being up close with him yesterday, I mean, the interesting take on this is You weren't there yesterday, and I didn't see you anyway. How you saw it from the outside. From the inside, it felt like there was a lot of vim and vigor and a lot of noise there.
Yeah, you're right. I wasn't there, and look, I have to be honest. From the outside, watching it on a stream, um, it was vintage Fury. I only wished that he had an opponent that could almost goad him and go back and forth with him a little bit, because I feel like that's when we see Fury at his best, when someone tries to almost get under his skin and then he goes up another few levels because he is such a wordsmith. And we didn't obviously see that because ultimately Arslanbek Makhmudov, not, it's wrong to say happy to be there, but he's almost won the lottery ticket, hasn't he? And he isn't the type of person to go back and forth. English, he's good. He speaks relatively good English, but it's not his first language. And I almost felt like Fury needed someone to kind of, have a bit of a fist fight, a sparring session with, and we didn't really get that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And so it was one-way traffic in that sense. And Arslanbek Makhmudov is actually quite a charming man. I mean, he looks like a gorgon. I mean, he looks like a vicious monster. But up close and personal, he's actually quietly spoken, speaks English very fast, but in very low key. You have to lean in to understand him. Yeah, obviously, you know him as well. I've been around him a few times. I find him very pleasant. He's also style. I know we'll come to that, but personality-wise, it's always going to be the Tyson Fury show around him. He's not going to try and compete in that way, even though he's looked at Fury and believes this is his destiny moment, which he got across yesterday, which I thought was quite interesting. Physically, he looks right against Fury, but like you say, if Fury's not going to call him the big dosser and get stuck into him because he's got nothing to feed off, as you said. So that was flat in that sense. But Fury didn't need that yesterday because he's back with his Netflix tie and his sliders with Netflix on them, and his outrageous, outlandish clothes. And as you said, the Mac is back, and he is back.
Yeah, the two biggest boxing stars ever in this country in terms of just fandom are Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. I think of AJ when he came back after the Usyk defeats and he went to the O2 Arena for Jermaine Franklin. And it was a sellout, but it was a push to kind of sell those last few tickets. Tyson Fury, after losing to Alexander Usyk in his comeback fight, has chosen to go to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 3 times as big as the O2 Arena, right? 60,000+. Do you think it's an easy sell, considering the opponent? Do you think he'll get over the line? I mean, do you think he can sell it out, basically, is what I'm asking?
Yeah, it's an interesting business and philosophical question. If you listen to the noisy trolls online, they've had enough of Tyson Fury. But when it rolls around and we have Fight Week and we have Netflix and, when we get the promotion, no, I think they will get 50, 60,000 in there. I mean, I'm not at pains. I cannot. I know some of the undercard fights, I believe, but they're not confirmed yet. And it looks like they've got a good undercard as well that will sell tickets in London. He's a big star. I mean, does it? I think they will virtually sell out the stadium. It's the 5th fight at Tottenham Hotspur. Joshua was the first. Fury was the second, of course, against Derek Chisora on December the 3rd. 2 Ben Eubank fights that we were both at last year, I believe. I think we were, weren't we? Yeah.
I was at one. I was banished from another. I was at one.
I remember now. But it's a massive stadium. It's the best stadium for boxing in the UK, in my view. It's extraordinary. It's an amazing place. Yeah, I think he does. I think he's big enough and his personality is big enough to sell it out. And he's been away long enough that people want to go for the Tyson Fury experience. I'm sure there'll be a lot of noise around it and a lot of pageantry and theatricality. So, I don't think there's a problem selling it. I think what they could do, if Anthony Joshua is recuperated by then, I think they could potentially tease that fight later in the year if Anthony's ready. That would help it. I think a bit of forward momentum. There's a bit of jeopardy here with Arslanbek Makhmudov. He's a banana skin. Fury's not coming back against a can. I think he's a top 20 fighter. So I think there's enough in it. Yeah, I mean, I think this is what we do today. We question how many people will be in. This would never happen when Frank Bruno and Lennox Lewis were fighting. No one questioned how many people would be in the arena. It's the modern way of looking at all the intricate details. I don't think there's an issue with the guy's a superstar. There's no question about it. He's just filmed a second giant series on Netflix. He is being paid tens of millions of pounds to fight. He is a massive figure who has crossed over from sport into business. I mean, it's the Gypsy King. I mean, and he's a divisive figure. So people that don't like him want to watch anyway.
How much? Final one, and I agree with you, by the way. No one questions ticket sales for anything other than boxing, which is
I know it's weird,
strange.
Isn't it?
It is strange. No, literally, how many people turned up at Wimbledon? No one cares. How many people turned up with a football match? No one cares. But boxing, everyone seems to care. Is there a small worry in the sense that while the Chisora is the week before, and boxing fans are going to pick and choose, the week before that is Moses Italma in Manchester. Like, surely, if you're a boxing fan, you're going to pick and choose here. I mean, unless, your pockets are that deep where you can afford to go to every single one of them. And you know this, Gareth, it's hotel, it's food, it's train tickets. Sometimes it's even plane tickets. Is there a bit of a worry that there are 3 mammoth events back to back to back? Is that a bit of a problem when you are trying to sell 60,000?
Maybe, but I mean, I'm quite thrilled by that. I think the momentum just grows. We get the young upstart, the upstart of the division, the Wunderkind on the 28th of March in Manchester. Then we go to the 2 old iconic figures, Chisora and Deontay Wilder at the O2, and then it's not necessarily they're all big ones. They're all big ones, and I think there's a momentum about having 3 in a row. Listen, it's an interesting point you make. I was more excited about the momentum of it growing. If Fury's around, maybe he's at Italma and Jermaine Franklin. Maybe he's ringside at Chisora and Wilder. Fought both of them 3 times. So maybe it'd be good to have him there. There's a marketability about having, weekend after weekend after weekend. And there's only more is going to... I mean, May the 9th, we've got Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois. We only need an Usyk fight announced and a Kabayel fight announced and Anthony Joshua back. And the division's in flux again. So it's an interesting point you make, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether it halt sales. I think it'll do massive numbers on Netflix talking about Fury and Arslanbek Makhmudov. I'm sure it'll be 30 odd million in that region. Whether they'll fill the arena out or the stadium out, I don't know. But I think there'll be a lot of people going for the Fury experience. And he's got to deliver, because we haven't talked about what Makhmudov represents physically in this athletic competition. And he is a banana skin in some ways.
No, he is, and we're going to get to that as well. Another reason Tyson Fury said that, he is back, and again, you touched on it in your opening sort of speech there, was that he mentioned Anthony Joshua. He mentioned sort of finding out the news like we all did at the time about Anthony Joshua losing his friends Latz and Sinner. This is what Tyson Fury had to say about that.
A tragedy that happened with Anthony Joshua. I was on holiday with my family in Thailand for Christmas, just to get away from the rain. Sick of the rain, it was depressing me. And then I hear all that bad news that's gone on. And I thought, you know what? Life is very, very short and very precious and very fragile. And anything could happen at any given moment. And you should never put things off until tomorrow or next year or next week, because tomorrow is not promised to nobody. The Bible says tomorrow is not a gift. Tomorrow ain't promised. Tomorrow is a mystery. So we have to live for today. And me living for that day, I made my mind up there and then that I'm going to come back to boxing, because it's something that I love and I'm passionate about and that I've always been in love with. And there is no tomorrow to put it off to. So that's why I'm back today for this big fight.
Very classy there from Tyson Fury. And look, him and AJ have kind of had their back and forths over the years, but they've known each other a very, very long time. And actually, when they see each other, it's actually a lot of love there as well. So,
Yeah.
as much as people like to create that there's this real tension and they're beefing each other on the streets, it's not like that. And I think that kind of showed it in Tyson Fury's words there.
Yeah, occasionally Anthony's lost his patience with Tyson Fury, and I get it, because they've been close to being in a ring together 3 or 4 times over the last decade. And as you say, they've been on a very... Look, they're both gargantuan figures on the British sports scene. And obviously, they're heavyweights who've been in and out of world championships and been champions. And they've crisscrossed the lines over a decade on similar trajectories. So to not have them fight over that period has been extraordinarily frustrating. I think more so for Anthony Joshua at times than Tyson Fury, who, if you look back on the historicity of it, he's probably teased Anthony a little bit more than Anthony has teased him. And so Anthony's gone off on a tangent. I think we've got to see these two men fight. If Anthony's coming back, we've got to see them fight. It's still a mammoth event. Yes, it's 5 years later than we probably wanted it. They're both slightly over the hill. They're both in their mid to late 30s. Fury's 38 soon. But it's... I do, in my heart, I think it's going to happen this year.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And I think it's... As we heard there, Fury's not inspired isn't the right word, but has realised and spoke with depth and with spirituality about what Anthony's gone through, and his feeling is that I don't want to waste any opportunities, and I think Anthony will feel the same when he comes around. And I know we all want it, and we want this bragging rights fight because we feel it's got to happen because we're involved in this era. But I think the two men will have 2 fights in the end, in my view.
Let's hope. Let's hope they do. Let's hope they do. You've teased it a few times. Let's talk about the Russian giant Arslanbek Makhmudov, now based in Canada. We were there for the Dave Allen fight, and in the end, it was kind of one-way traffic. Dave Allen had his moments, but I think a lot of us were surprised by Makhmudov's output. That right hand, he kept on throwing it. It didn't stop. Looked like he had a good chin as well. Dave caught him a couple of times. 37 is 37, right? Fury's legs. I mean, it was interesting listening to, on the broadcast, they had Lennox and Carl Froch, and both of them retired at 38, and they spoke about just how their legs felt, how they just felt like they didn't have it in their legs anymore. Tyson Fury is going to be that. He's going to be 38. He represents a bit of a problem, Makhmudov, if Fury isn't still as fleet-footed as we once saw him.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yet, Arslanbek Makhmudov's style is to come forward, let his hands go. He's perfect for Fury to pop out the jab, hold, go to the body. He's lost a couple of times. So, in the sense, so's Fury, by the way, obviously only to Alexander Usyk. I just think he's a big target for Fury. And Fury looks like and feels like he's on his game. But like you say, Father Time, that's his biggest opponent right now. And he has just spent 15 months out not boxing, falling in love with the sport again, knowing that it's something he needs inside him. So it will be a test. I still feel that if he could fiddle his way through it and go 12 rounds and everyone critiques him horribly. But if he's at his best, I think he pops out the jab, goes to the body, hits and holds, and dismantles Makhmudov between about round 6 and 8, by round 6 and 8, and stops him. Yeah,
that's what the Gypsy King should do. Let's hope he does do that. All right, let's wrap.
How do you feel?
I just sometimes I'm worried about Father Time. We've been teased this AJ Fury fight for years, and I almost feel like surely this isn't just another banana skin in the road to it not happening. And I look at Fury, and I know everyone was like, "Oh, he looks fresh. He looks like he's got a nice young tan on him." And I look at a man that's been through a lot. I look at a man that's had a few wars, the wars with Wilder, the wars with Usyk, and I mean, you again, you've covered the sport way longer than I have. That does catch up with you. and I just wonder, would it have caught up with him now? And then the long times out of the sport where he takes these big long breaks, and I'm like, activity is key, and you're having these really big long 15, 16-month breaks all the time. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Fury gets it done. I just feel like, look, he should get it done, but maybe we might be overlooking Arslanbek Makhmudov here a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, he could end up being his nemesis. And if Fury loses, maybe he does a rematch, but then that's protracted. There's risk in this fight. And sitting with Makhmudov yesterday, he thinks it's his destiny. He thinks he's not just getting a big payday. He wants to win this. You know, he's fresher than Fury. Like you say, we don't know what Fury's got left. He had two very hard fights, very close, competitive fights with the brilliant Usyk in 2024. He sat out 2025. Yes, he didn't balloon in weight this time, and I don't think he's drinking, and I don't think he's ravaged mentally or emotionally with some of the afflictions he's had in the past. He has seemed very happy out in camp in Thailand, happy with his wife and his family, and that he's espousing and putting all that stuff out that feels good. But we don't know when he gets punched in the face how he's going to react and how he's going to be. I think there is jeopardy in this, and you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Makhmudov won, but I still think Fury's probably got enough in him. I think we'll still have question marks after the fight.
Yeah. Let's talk about the main talking point as we wrap this section. John Fury looking for Carl Froch, and that almost being the thing of the press conference. John Fury screaming and shouting and making a beeline for Froch, making a beeline for Lennox Lewis. You were right there. You would have got a really perfect sort of vantage point of what happened. Kind of talk us through what exactly did happen. Did Carl run? Because John would make it seem as though Carl ran out of the building. What happened?
Well, there was suddenly this big booming voice in the press conference area, but probably about an hour before it was due to start. Everyone was in there early because there were lots of sit-downs. It was like a 5-hour press conference yesterday because most people in there by about 1, and it didn't finish till about 5:30 in that giant room overlooking that amazing pitch, an amazing stadium. I actually went. I spoke to John while he was raging. Believe it or not, I don't know if you've seen it, but I went right up to see him, and to ask him what was up. But he came downstairs first of all from where all the rooms were, all the interviews were happening, and because he'd been sitting in there while we saw Tyson Fury, he'd been sitting in one of the boxes that overlooks the pitch. And I went away to work and do a business meeting and do some writing and. Met the talkSPORT crew. We did a hit to Hawksby and Jacobs. Then I saw, then I heard this booming voice, and it was John who'd come down. He'd spotted Carl Froch on a raised platform with Lennox Lewis and Anna Woolcroft.
Anna Woolhouse.
Anna Woolhouse and Lennox Lewis, who were doing a broadcast, a live kind of feed for Netflix. And Froch obviously working for Netflix, and someone must have told John about this, because he saw him over the balcony, and said, "I'm going downstairs." So he went down, and he was down below the platform, raging against Carl Froch that he'd called out his name, and Carl has trolled him quite a lot, if you recall. So Carl looked a little bit wide-eyed at this. He's in the middle of a broadcast. Lennox Lewis was then spoken to by John Fury. Said, "I never backed down against you. I'd have fought you in my time." Obviously, John was a heavyweight, professional heavyweight. Gypsy John Fury, as he was known. He didn't have a fantastic record. But then John came back upstairs and he went on a rampage. Not physically, but he was raging against the fact that his name should be respected because he has begat Tyson Fury, and obviously they're from 10 generations of bare-knuckle fighters. I went up there to speak to him. I had a cameraman with me, Joseph Brody. We were doing a documentary on the day. It's out on my Netflix. On my Netflix. It's out on my YouTube channel, and it's it kind of just shows where he was up close and personal. He was in this space where he was. We've seen it before. We've seen it with when he lost it. When Tommy Fury was fighting KSI, we've seen it when he headbutted Usyk's teammate, entourage teammate, out in Saudi Arabia. When John gets going, the fuse is lit, and some people are outraged by it. I've known John a long time, about 20 years, and so I went to talk to him about how he's feeling. And his big thing is, that guy's down there making money off my son. I made that boy. This is the business. So give me some respect. And I know people don't like the way he does it sometimes, but it's fascinating to be around. You know?
Yeah, no, he is an interesting character, and I'd have him at every single press conference because, you know, if it gets boring, just turn to John Fury and it will be exciting. That's what he does. Just getting is that a coffee down yet, Gareth?
It is. It's well, we always record this early in the morning, even though it goes out later in the afternoon.
Yes. Yes, people don't realise we are recording this at nearly 9 a.m. as we do, just to make sure that it goes out for you guys right on perfect time for lunch. All right, let's talk about a couple of big fights this weekend. Let's start in Las Vegas. Mario Barrios defending his WBC welterweight title fight against the superstar that is Ryan Garcia. Obviously, a lot of UK eyes are going to be on this one just because of implications as to where the winner could go. Conor Benn could fight the winner. The WBC have propelled him into that position. Who starts as favourite in this one? Is it Garcia, who's not won a fight properly? Obviously, the Devin Haney fight was a no contest for 3 years. His last win was Oscar Duarte. Or is it Mario Barrios, who hasn't really looked good as a welterweight champion? I think he maybe lost to Manny Pacquiao last time out. Who's the favourite in this?
That was a very close fight with Manny Pacquiao. I think all depends on whether you're going for Barrios. Always, I think he does always do better than you think he's going to do as well. I think he's a quiet figure in some ways. I think he won't be this week around Ryan Garcia because I think they'll get things dragged out of him by the lunatic genius in a way that Ryan Garcia is, the bad boy, the villain of boxing in some ways as well. I go with Ryan Garcia because of his power. I'm picking Garcia to win this by late stoppage or on points anyway. I think he is a level above. I think he's already been in against some of the great young American fighters. The loss to Gervonta Davis was against a guy who I think if he had his life intact, we'd be talking about him in the same kind of manner that we are about Shaka Stevenson at the moment. Yeah. And I think he'd be going up the weight divisions. I think Garcia needs to be mentally right this week, though, as well, to win the fight. You mentioned the Devin Haney fight, 3 pounds overweight for that, wasn't he? Tested positive for banned substances afterwards. Was he or wasn't he faking that he was drinking beer in fight week at the press conference? But physically in the fight, he gave Devin Haney a shellacking, didn't he? I remember watching it from, I think, an airport, and I think it might have been Dubai airport where I was traveling at the time. And it was unbelievable at the time. Even though it's been expunged from the records, it's now a redacted fight, if you want to use a very current term. Garcia for me. How do you see it?
Yeah, I would like to think that Garcia is going to take one of these opportunities and take them properly. He's had a few now. The Gervonta Davis was a huge fight. But look, he was weight drained in that fight, so you can almost give him an excuse. And as you say, Gervonta, if his head was on right, could be pound for pound number one right now. So there's no shame in that. Then he had the Devin Haney fight, which was just a crazy build-up. Got the win, but then obviously tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. Then he lost to Rolly Romero. So, a world title shot that he probably shouldn't have been given, didn't deserve. I don't think he deserves this either. So I'm just hoping that... I honestly don't. I mean, he's had a defeat and a no contest in his last 2 fights. I honestly hope that he takes one of these opportunities. And I think this is an opportunity which he can't afford not to take because he has everything. I mean, we've spoken about this so many times. A good-looking kid, has all the social media following. I mean, could be literally a boxer that crosses over to acting or whatever he wants to do. He's got the superstar looks about him. He's got the superstar kind of bravado. And I think the sport needs him to become that guy. And then there's a lot of talk as well, Gareth. I don't know if you've seen it in the last sort of 24 hours about this King of the Ring tournament that Turkey might be putting on, which is Shakur versus Ryan, Devon versus Keyshawn, and Conor versus Rowley, all on the same card. So almost a lot hinges on Ryan getting the victory this weekend because everyone else has done their part. So I hope he wins. I hope for the sport he wins, but I do think it's going to be a bit tougher than maybe some expect.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Rolly Romero there. Romero's a lot better than anyone gives him credit for, in my view. He's a very dangerous fighter when he's on his game. I know about the background to the King of the Ring event. It's what they should be doing. But when Turkey comes out with it, it's got a habit of jinxing it, hasn't it? And it not going right. Yeah. But because in those fights, I think Conor Benn would struggle against Rolly Romero. I think it's a very tough fight for him, by the way. But Conor Benn in the mix, yes. People don't understand that he's a crossover star. People say that he doesn't deserve the opportunities. People say that, we never got the full transparent story around with the clomiphene. So there's outliers. There's outliers in the issues around it, and so people have their criticisms of it. The fact that Ryan is being given the WBC title, like you say, away 3 years, installed as a challenger. People can critique Mauricio Suleiman and the WBC, which Dana White's doing right now, by the way, and Zuffa Boxing in very strong terms, as he is with. He's gone in hard. He's fired some bullets at the boxing world since the event on Sunday. Zuffa Boxing 3. Which I found fascinating, and I don't disagree with everything he says either. I think he's got a point in some of the things he says. He doesn't feel challenged. I think we're going to come on to that and chat about that a bit more anyway, aren't we? But it's good what's happening. It's good that Conor Benn will be ringside in Vegas on Saturday. I understand he's going to be out there with his team. This is what needs to happen in American boxing right now. And these names those 6 names almost don't need belts to be competing for. It's just King of the Ring tournament. Yeah. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, it's very interesting how Conor's almost just inserted himself into this mix, almost replacing Gervonta, who obviously is going through what he's going through legally. And Conor's just been the perfect replacement. And he's now matching up with all of them, and he's starting fights with all of them, and they know who he is because of that magnificent first Eubank performance. I love what Conor's doing, and long may it continue. But yeah, I fly out to Vegas tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, whatever people say, Eddie, boxing is about personality as well as being able to fight. And fighting is not a normal thing. It's not a normal sport. It's an extraterrestrial sport. It's a visceral sport. It's an ancient thing. It's something deep inside the human. It's more than just competition. It has weird algorithms. So when you've got people who are amazing personalities, they are compelling as human beings. The irony. That's why Conor Benn's there. The irony in the last year for me, the biggest irony, is Terence Crawford, who was behind the curtains for years and years and years, finally his athletic brilliance is recognised. Finally, he becomes a crossover star, and then he retires. And we finally got to know him, and then he retired. When you've got someone who has crossed over, like Conor Benn, who's been invested in by the Saudi Arabians and Turki Al-Sheikh to the tune of 20 million last year, I don't care what anyone says, even though the second fight was flat, they were extraordinary events at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against. It crossed over in British sporting and cultural life. So when you've got someone who's been through that and has become that bigger star and can go and mix it with the Americans, and he's got the charisma of a Brit coming over there, and he speaks Spanish, that's why he's in the mix. He's a box office star. He became that last year in the second fight with Chris Eubank, and there'll be no looking back.
No looking back at all. And yeah, hopefully he is ringside. I'm sure he will be. I'm sure he'll get in the ring and do what he needs to do after the event. All right, let's talk about a fight closer to home. Great fight between two elder statesmen, if they don't mind me saying that. Lee Wood, 37, Josh Warrington, 35. They've been impeccable for British boxing over the last decade. Two former world champions who have what I view as almost a loser might have to retire fight on Saturday at the Motorpoint Arena in Nottingham. It's sold out. It sold out weeks ago. It's a rematch of their fight a couple of years ago, which Lee Wood won by stoppage. Josh Warrington very upset about the stoppage. So they get it on again. Obviously, look, they're coming to the end. If not right at the end. And it's almost fitting that these two are going at each other again. You're going to have a Nottingham side of that arena. You're going to have a Leeds side of the arena. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere. And I'm happy for both men to get this final opportunity to really have sort of a last ding against each other in what will be sort of an incredible atmosphere.
Yeah, very well put. And this has to deliver, and it will deliver. As you say, Warrington's 35, Wood's 37. We talked about age in the legs earlier when Carl Froch and Lennox Lewis talking about Tyson Fury in that sense. I get why Warrington, the most followed fighter at one point by fans in terms of bums on seats outside the heavyweight division in this country. I mean, I remember looking at the cards. He was 58, 56, 59, 55, 59, 55, ahead of Wood when he was stopped in the 7th round. I get his ire and how irked he still is, and it sticks in the craw with him. He's got a chance to right the wrongs. They've both been great servants, as you say, and at that age, they're still making super featherweight, not featherweight anymore. They're both world champions at featherweight, obviously. And fantastic resumes. Wood's got the power in his hands. I backed against Warrington before many times because he was never known as a puncher, yet the performances against people like Carl Frampton were extraordinary. He always sails back with a vengeance. I think it's going to be an amazing event. It will be off the charts, both heavily supported by their football teams. It's going to be a very visceral, violent atmosphere in Nottingham. I say the sold-out Nottingham Arena on Saturday night. I'm going for Wood again, just to have that extra bit of power in his hands. Wouldn't surprise me if he wins again by stoppage, but a bit later this time. It's a great fight.
It is a great fight, great chief support as well. Got Ishmael Davies defending his British and Commonwealth super welterweight titles against Bilal Fawaz. So happy for Bilal, who's taken these opportunities right at the final chapter in his career. He's one. I mean, you mentioned Crawford. He's one that's been waiting for ages. He's had so many issues, Bilal. It's a movie, his story, and it would almost be a fantastic ending if he were to win the British and Commonwealth titles. It won't be easy against a very strong Ishmael Davies, he's having his full fight in 5 months, by the way.
Yeah, and also what I'd like to see for Bilal Fawaz, who was on Fight Night with me a few weeks ago, is I'd like to see a call out to the Home Office if he wins, because if he becomes British champion, all those issues that he's got, we haven't got time to go into all of it right now, but he needs to be recognised properly as a British citizen. If he holds the British title, I would love to see him call out the Home Office for his next fight, and I'd like to see him win it.
I like that. That's a great shout. Call out the Home Office for his next fight. I love that. It's a perfect way of putting it, Gareth. Zuffa put on their third event over the weekend on a Sunday, which is interesting. I don't mind boxing on a Sunday. It shouldn't just be a Saturday event. It was headlined by F.A. Jagba versus Charles Martin, not for the Zuffa heavyweight world title, which is interesting. I'm going to get Gareth's thoughts on that. Like, what makes a title fight now with this new organization? But the conversation really is about what happened after the event. Eddie Hearn and Dana White seem to be embroiled in these war of words, and Dana took it to a whole nother level. And this is what Dana White had to say about the event, but more specifically about Eddie Hearn.
There hasn't been any pushback.
Okay.
This is like beating up babies. I feel like I came in and I'm beating up babies. I expected more. I expected some pushback. I expected some, I don't know, them to be more game. They're all way out of their league. Like, absolutely, positively out of their league. I don't think anybody looks at Eddie Hearn and says, oh, this guy's a visionary, or, the guy's been in boxing forever. I look at him like most politicians. You've done nothing in the sport except stay in the lane and, play by all the rules and, ride right along with but you ended up becoming part of the problem, is what happened. And I don't want to sit here and smash Eddie Hearn or anything else, but Eddie Hearn works for his dad. You know what I mean? He works for dad. And, I don't think he's come in and ever had any type of vision, whereas we do. And we're gonna change the entire sport. And I understand the people who are the status quo in boxing don't like it. But it doesn't mean they can't still do their thing. If your thing is as good as you think it is, and you are as good as you think you are, then do your thing. Good luck to you. I'm going to do my thing, and they're going to do theirs. Eddie Hearn and his dad have a lot of money. It's not like they can't compete. They can't compete because they don't know how to compete. There's no vision there. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. And listen, I'm sitting here, my third fight in. I'm either right or I'm wrong.
Okay, very, very strong. We've heard these words from competitors, if you like, of Eddie before. You got a leg up by your dad, you've done nothing, etc., etc. I think that's a bit strong. I think Eddie's done a lot, and I'm not just saying it because I do Matchroom events. I think Eddie's put on a lot of events, big ones as well. And if you even do get a lift up from your family, what's wrong with that? I don't see a problem with that. I'd like to provide something for my kids so they don't have to scrap and fight their way up the ladder. I don't see a problem with that. What do you make of Dana White's words?
Well, I said it on our show. I've said it a few times recently. I didn't think it was. Eddie Hearn didn't need to start a war of words with Dana White a couple of months ago. There's no need for it. But it's interesting. I think Eddie, to go over what Eddie has done. By the way, you mentioned Charles Martin and F.A. Jagba. I was just thinking people might be Googling. Charles Martin was stopped in the fourth round by F.A. Jagba on Sunday night. So you don't need to Google what the result was if you didn't know. But the Dana White, right, you've got to look at where Dana White is right now. He's just putting on an event. He's just sat down for a few days to create the card. And he said he's got several possibilities to create the card for UFC to go and have an event in July on the White House lawn. Okay? They're going to have a few thousand guests, the biggest event in their history. Every fighter in the world and every celebrity in the world wants to be at that event. They are thinking of the angles. They want the cenotaph in the background. They want the White House in the background. And he's just put on his third boxing event. He's got the support of Turki Al-Sheikh, and he's got some bloke over in England who doesn't really know him, and he doesn't really know, who is called Eddie Hearn, who he hasn't really been taking notice of all these years, in all truth, who's been sticking pins in a mannequin of him for a little while. And it's his chance to respond when he's just had 3 events. It's a soft launch. They are about to go big. Once he's got the White House sorted out, they will go big. And they are going to do 8 weight divisions that they've just announced, which was always Turki Al-Sheikh's plan. They're about to get the Muhammad Ali revival act through. They're about to be able to sign people on big contracts, and they're going for it. And he's looked at boxing, and it looks sleepy and dead to him. And right now, even though Eddie Hearn was brilliant bringing Anthony Joshua through when he really grew, and Sky Sports and Sky Box Office and got the $1 billion deal with DAZN 8 years ago, and they're about to announce their renewal with DAZN, aren't they? And about to announce the schedule over the next kind of year or so. Dana White's not seeing any threat from him. You know, he's looking at Eddie Hearn's stable, and he's looking at the invasion that he can create in boxing. And they are very smart people. Their company's worth 30 billion. So, as he's saying, it's not even a rivalry because there's nothing to have a rivalry over. I completely got his diatribe, if you like, at Eddie Hearn. He had an attack on Mauricio Suleiman as well, and the WBC in that same space of time at that press conference. It was the post-fight press conference, of course. I thought it was fascinating, and I think it's going to be a pitched battle.
Yeah, I there's some points I agreed with him on, because I think Dana White's just an incredible promoter. I do, however, and I do think Eddie's the best boxing promoter. And I do think he looks at Eddie, and they both look at each other as competition. This has almost been, obviously Frank's and Bob and everyone else has been around a lot longer, but I think Eddie came as the new kid on the block and done some big events in stadiums. And you're right, the AJ thing massively helped. There are others as well. Froch before AJ. But I do think he looks at Eddie as the younger, hotter competition. And I think it's good for boxing that we have these two going at each other's throats. I don't mind it. I actually don't mind it at all. And I almost see Turkey there just playing around with both of them, if I'm honest with you, almost playing around like puppets with both
master.
of them. Yes. Yeah, I honestly see him. And I see him laughing at all of this, seeing these two go at each other and giving him fights and then giving him some fights. And you can have this and you can have this. But I think it's good. But look, Eddie's always looked up to Dana. So it is interesting, the idea of Eddie decided, and it's almost strategic because he's looked up to him. He's looked up to the UFC and the way in which they do stuff. Matchroom have definitely copied some of the UFC's ideas. And now Eddie's decided, I'm going to go at you, which is interesting. He's got to be a bit careful, Eddie, because as you say, Dana White lives for this. He loves it. He's gone at Oscar. He's gone at Espinoza. He's gone at Mauricio Suleiman. Dana White will go at anyone and not fear repercussions. So I don't mind it. I think it's fun. I like the idea of it. But yeah, let's keep it just the boxing and not personal stuff.
Well, you said it earlier on. That what's interesting is the way he's saying they're going to do their thing and we're going to do ours. Now, the big issue has been in boxing how you bring the stables together of different promoters for the big fights to happen. That's going to be the big issue of why is the Zuffa champion better than the WBC, WBO, IBF, unified champion? That's what's going to be the fascinating thing to look at. Look, we know Eddie's a brilliant promoter. We know that. But are there going to be any cooperative lines? White's saying he isn't going to cooperate with the other promoters. He doesn't need to. But he's going to need some of the fighters that are with other promoters. And I don't know yet where the twain is going to meet. It's going to be very fascinating for us as observers to see how that goes. I mean, I don't like this 6-year contract thing. I think that 6-year contract's too long with any promoter. And I think the Muhammad Ali Revival Act, I spoke to a great old historian of the sport, Don Majeski, who was a matchmaker as well for Don King last week. And Don said to me, the Muhammad Ali Act, in many ways, didn't really change boxing that much. But I just think the uniformity and control that Zuffa always had in the UFC may or may not work in boxing. We don't know yet. I think for us, I think it's great to have them involved because it's a very interesting add-on to boxing, and it will help boxing develop in America. And they've certainly come into it at the right time with Showtime, HBO, Fox, and all those guys going out of the sport, and now it's streamed on Paramount. So it's just fascinating.
Yeah, and what Zuffa does do as well, and look, it's been 3 shows back to back to back. If you're a fighter, that's what you want ultimately. Whether or not I agree with fights being being at the apex, which I think is a bit soulless. But if you're a fighter and you've got a promoter and a broadcaster knocking on your doors and saying, look, we're going to put events on all the time, come join us, it must be very tempting to know that you are just going to get some fights as opposed to just sitting on your hands and staying in the gym and not getting the call. So I think it is good. I think it's a great addition. And I think they add a lot to American boxing, especially when we don't know what's going on with Top Rank. As you mentioned, HBO, Showtime, all saying goodbye, ESPN. I think it's a good addition.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if a fighter wants to be with a big promoter and Frank Warren wants them, they're going to go there. If a boxer wants to be in with another big promoter, they'll go to Eddie Hearn. If these guys come looking for you, go with them. But in America, right now, if people want to go into boxing, they'll go with Dana White, I'm sure, in Turkey because the opportunities are there. We might even see some Brits crossing over to them as well. So it'll be interesting when those first guys go. There will be competition. It'll be a pitch battle, in my view, over the next 2 or 3 years. But again, it will be good for moving. The tectonic plates are shifting. We know that with broadcasting, and Netflix and Amazon will come on board, and the giant streamers will come on board. That's where boxing is going. Certainly at the top level fights, the big number fights. But there's so much nuance in the sport. There's so much room for everyone, everywhere, Ade, in my view.
Yeah, there's even room for us small fish in this big sea. All right, you've been listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2. Big thanks, as always, to my main man, Gareth, for joining me today. Remember, if you have missed any of the show, you can listen to it as a podcast. Find it under the Fight Night banner on the talkSPORT app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. We'll be back next week.